Hi, welcome to another episode of Caring for Others, Caring for Ourselves, produced by the Massachusetts Lifespan Respite Coalition. I'm your host tonight, Stacey Hammerlind. I'm the project coordinator, and I'm incredibly excited to have this amazing panel of people here who have developed programming. My thought is that this is a group of people who saw there was a gap in the system and did some action to do something about it. Terrible grammar there. But so let's go around and introduce each other. I'd like to start with Lenard Zohn.
Sure. My name is Lenard Zohn. About 2 years ago, my wife Delphine and I started a program called Autism Eats that brings autism families together for nights out in restaurants.
Wonderful. And Galit Schwartz.
Hi. About 3 months ago, I opened the Power Cafe in Watertown, which is a coffee shop which is run and operated entirely by people with disabilities.
And Kathy Boyle.
My name is Kathy Boyle, and I'm the president of Autism Housing Pathways, and we work with families to figure out housing options for their family members with developmental disabilities.
And Mary MacDonald.
My name is Mary MacDonald. I am the foundress and CEO of MaryMac Missions, whose goal is to really save the lives of dementia caregivers. And at my home in Topsfield, we are developing wheelchair accessible gardens because my husband and I saw a gap that there just are not many accessible gardens in our state.
And Pat Lawrence.
My name is Pat Lawrence. I am the host of Mental Health Matters for the past 25 years. And there was a large gap in the system 15 years ago for the mentally ill. And they only got $500 in insurance. So I wrote the Mental Health Parity Bill, which took 4 years to pass, but did. Senator Fred Berry and Representative Byron Rushing were the sponsors of this bill. That's my claim to fame.
And I said an amazing panel. So Lenard, you have Autism Eats, and if you tell us a little bit about your organization and what it does.
Sure. Autism families can have a very difficult time going out in social environments. The atmosphere, sights, sounds, different types of textures, waiting for things. People with autism, especially kids, can have a very difficult time doing that. They don't like to wait. They can become overwhelmed very easily, distracted very easily. And what might be something as simple as going out for a bite to eat to a restaurant for dinner one evening presents many challenges. The kids don't want to sit still. They might have a limited palate, have nothing to eat on the menu. They might throw tantrums or act loudly. And it becomes very stressful. You might feel like you're impacting the diners around you. The well-meaning restaurant staff typically doesn't know the best way to help, to assist, to work with your table. And after experiencing this time after time, it becomes more stress, more anxiety than it's really worth. And what that does really is it causes you to stay home and not go out into the community as much as you'd like to do. And you get a sense somewhat of isolation, which doesn't feel good. So what my wife Delphine and I did was to start this group, start Autism Eats, and put together restaurant dinners for families that have a member or members with autism to come out in a completely welcoming, opening environment. It's non-judgmental. Everything in that restaurant is set up for success in terms of accessibility, in terms of the menu, in terms of not having to wait. We have our own room, and it's just a chance for us to get together, build community, talk about it, not talk about it, but enjoy a typical night out and an enjoyable night out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Galit, a little bit about the Power Cafe.
Power Cafe is almost the other side of Autism Eats, because we are a coffee shop that is staffed by people with disabilities, and it also has its mission to empower the entire disability community. So we've had, in our 3 months since we opened, we've had groups from the Cotting School, groups from the Perkins School, groups from local adult day programs come and enjoy a meal at Power Cafe in, as you described it, a non-judgmental, open atmosphere. And as a bonus, they also see this as an opportunity to participate fully in an inclusive environment as they grow up. The concept of Power Cafe came out of, as we talked about earlier, seeing a gap. The gap that I saw is that children with disabilities have a lot of resources these days in the schools and in the hospitals, but when they grow up, the system kind of drops them and says, have a good day. And there's huge unemployment among people with disabilities, and I think that's really a missed opportunity. We right now have 2 employees, and they're both really great. It was just a matter of figuring out what accommodations each one of them needed in order to really blossom. I'll talk more about that later.
That's really exciting.
Wonderful.
And Kathy from Autism Housing Pathways.
Yes.
Now your group started. Your group started from a group of parents
That's
that saw a
correct.
gap.
In 2009, we started out as a group that was exploring the idea of creating a house for our kids who were going to age out of a specific school that they went to. And we did research, we had a visioning process, we had talking heads come in, and at the end of about 6 months, what we found out was that to even open one house, we were going to need a lot more people, because if you get a group of 15 people together to try to put together for your house, well, these kids are nonverbal, these kids are very verbal, this family doesn't want to be east of 495, this one doesn't want to be south of the Pike, you know, so even though we had a huge amount in common, we needed to go bigger to get anything done. And in the process, what we concluded was maybe what was really needed was an umbrella group to do research, because no matter how many houses you create, everybody has to do the same research, because everybody is bound by all of the programmatic regulations of all of the state and federal and local regulations. And so that's what we did. We became an umbrella organization to figure out what the housing options were and educate people about those options. Because one of the biggest problems that families get into is they think, oh, I'm going to do blah, blah, and they sink a whole lot of money into it. And it doesn't work, either because they were counting on a funding stream that they didn't know about, a regulation that prohibited them from using it, or it was never going to be sustainable to begin with, and they didn't have the experience to know that up front.
Wow, that's amazing. And Mary, you have kind of a different end of the spectrum. You're taking care of caregivers.
Yes. I'm a dementia care survivor, become activist and advocate, and I'm grateful to be alive today. And I'm grateful that over the last 6 years, I've been able to move forward from the devastation of dementia with 2 goals. And those 2 goals are saving the lives of dementia caregivers, which many people don't even know is a topic, and building accessible gardens. And I've become an expert on this topic, take care of yourself, for dementia caregivers. I write about self-care on my website, marymacmissions.com. I speak about this topic. I lead retreats and give workshops on this topic. And starting this year, I now offer a 2-hour guided respite retreat at our home in Topsfield. We have a cottage on our property that we've allocated specifically for respite retreats. And I'm giving those 2 hours at a time, because that's the time that I know from a survivor, as well as I've known from the people that I've met through my journey. That's all the time that they might be able to get away if they're 24/7 caring for someone with Alzheimer's. And in the respite retreat, I'm a certified yoga instructor now. It's about letting go. It's about releasing the stress just for that 2 hours. So that person can maybe just sit on a park bench. Maybe just have an indoor guided restorative yoga session for 60 minutes, one-on-one with me, where I lead them through a gradual relaxation of their body, which they might discover something new that then they can take home and practice. That's a big goal of mine, is to, when I'm a teacher, being able to give people tools that they can then take home and practice. In 2011, we made our gardens wheelchair accessible. It was really in the spirit of my mom, Margaret, who passed away at the age of 67 with a frontotemporal dementia. The 1/10 of a mile loop, it offers access to 7 awesome, unique garden spaces.
Wow.
It's a cut flower garden. There's a roses and kitchen garden and Orchard Avenue, ornamental tree and shrub garden, raspberry patch, cedar grove and tunnel, koi pond. And you know what's great and amazing about this? It's that there's this rich environment in a compact design and with a variety of experiences. So individuals, couples, families may observe and participate in ways that promote holistic therapeutic benefits. I like to say every nose may smell a rose. And our friend Marianne de Blasi, who's a member of our Lifespan Respite Coalition, she visited, she's a wheelchair user, and she said, what I liked most was the intimacy with the plantings. All of the plants are right there in front of you, and of course there are areas you're still working on making accessible, but being a wheelchair user, it was never a less than experience.
Wow. Amazing.
And in 2013, we began hosting Sunday strolls. Our friends from the Northeast Arc Burlington House have helped us test the trails. They wrote in our guest book, "Thank you for such a wonderful, positive experience. What you've created is a work of beauty, and we would love to come back. Thank you very much," from the staff and residents at the Burlington House. In 2015, we added a memory cafe to the once-a-month Sunday strolls program. This is new for us. What the memory cafe does is offers refreshing outdoor environment for the care partners and the people living with memory loss and or physical disabilities. And we welcome people at any stage of the degenerative disease process. It's an opportunity to enjoy beautiful gardens, conversation, network with people very much like Lenard's program, who are in the same boat as you are. There's no judgment. With the gardens, it's a wonderful opportunity for photos. We invite people to bring a picnic. And our passion is really to serve these people who are 24/7 in their home. And many people feel like they're imprisoned in their home and they can't get out. So that's really our passion, to serve those people.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
And Pat, last but not least.
Mary, I wish I had met you 25 years ago. You're almost making me cry. I am the mother of a daughter who has schizophrenia. And I was the wife of a husband who had borderline personality disorder. And so therefore I know quite a bit about mental health. And I can almost say I'm an expert. When my daughter became ill with schizophrenia, I knew nothing about mental illness. As many people are like that. They know nothing about it. It doesn't affect their lives, but it certainly affected mine. And so then my daughter became worse and worse. And as I looked for people to help me, there weren't any. As I looked for people to help me, they tended to go away. Relatives would just stop being relatives to my child. her grandparents wrote her out of their will. It was really devastating. And my husband was absolutely no help. He was a police officer, and he had borderline, and there's nothing worse than a raging police officer. So anyways, I had to do it myself. I had to figure out, how can I help my girl when I know nothing about the illness? So I started my own chapters of the Alliance for the Mentally Ill. And what I would do is I would bring in people for meetings that would educate me, not only the people that were my audience. And because the hospitals wanted to put her in a shelter, and I had to fight for her with politicians, the politicians helped me. So I decided at that point in time, they're the only people who are helping me. And so the hospital became so intimidated by the politicians that they let me hold the meetings in the hospital. And they let me bring down the people in the locked units. And they let me have the best refreshments they could give me. And that's why the people from the locked units loved to come to my meetings. But other people did too. And I learned so much from all of these psychiatrists, CEOs, psychologists. And so I learned about schizophrenia, and I learned about borderline. So then I started to go up in ranks as far as committees until I got to the top. And then I became the president of the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill of Massachusetts. And then things went much better for my girl. I had to keep her in the system. She was in a halfway house, but they didn't get the food. They didn't have good furniture. The place was dirty. And that's the way halfway houses were. And the staff would steal from the patients. So I had to do something, which I did. And the best thing that ever happened to me was my picture was on the board of this halfway house. And these people loved me. And I would go in there and have supper with them when the Department of Mental Health decided to make things better. And the Department of Mental Health brought in new furniture, new food, changed the staff so that they weren't stealing. And my daughter was in the locked units 13 times. And when she was under the Department of Mental Health, they gave her medication that brought her back to me within 3 weeks. And you know, I can't be more grateful for such a thing. But I have gone on and on and on to help the people with mental health issues. And I intend to keep on going. And I have a program called Mental Health Matters that I hope you do watch. It's to get rid of stigma. So that's what I've been doing, Stacey.
And these are just all amazing stories, like I said. And I'm going to steal one of your expressions, Mary, is that really what you all are doing in your own way is saving the lives of caregivers. That, like Pat said, nobody knows. You don't know until you need to know, and then trying to navigate any of these systems is mind-boggling and just overwhelming. And there's nothing like a peer or an advocate to kind of
Help
you along the way. You really, it's vital. We've heard some really personal stories. So let's go back to Lenard. Sure. Autism Eats is going strong for about 3 years now. And how many, like when you have an event at a restaurant, how many families come? How often have you been able to hold them?
Sure, we've been holding the dinners approximately every 3 months. And our first dinner, which was in Andover, Massachusetts, we really weren't sure. We knew we had something there, but we really didn't know how many people are going to show up. So in trying to work with the restaurant, is it going to be 30 people or 40 people or 50? We had about 115 people show up for our first dinner, which was fantastic. And as more and more people started walking through the door, the manager of the restaurant started ushering more and more of the diners that were there before us into other parts of the restaurant. And really, by the end of it, we had about 3/4 of the restaurant, if not all of us, for our group.
Wow.
And it was, you know, it was tremendous. You know, it certainly showed that, you know, we latched on to something here that was going to be very helpful for these families.
Absolutely.
And something that they felt so good about participating in and wanting to come back and do more. Last December, only a few months ago, we had our 8th dinner. Back where we started, it was kind of a 2-year anniversary / holiday party dinner. And we get families that are coming, repeat families that come to just about every dinner we've had. And we also have families that are driving in from 2-3 hours away just to join on a Monday, Tuesday night.
Wow.
To be part of that community and feel that way.
That is wonderful.
Thank you.
And so you're actually going to try to expand a little bit. You're going to try to take this program across Massachusetts?
We're doing that.
Very
With the help of the coalition, we've just scheduled our April 4th dinner in Waltham. And you can check out the website. I'll give my plug also. AutismEats.org for more information about that. And we'll have a second dinner in April as well, probably in the North Shore area. It coincides well with April, which is Autism Awareness Month. And then the plan will be to really grow the radius of the programs and start running dinners in multiple communities across Massachusetts and do it simultaneously, so that we won't just have one dinner kind of in this Merrimack Valley Metro West area every 3 or so months, but we'll be having frequent dinners every month or so, multiple dinners every month or so, all across Massachusetts.
That's really exciting.
Yes, we're very excited about it, and we've had some press. The Boston Globe sent some people to our December dinner, and that's helped get the word out. And that's went somewhat viral within the autism community, and it's really all about getting the word out. The more people we tell, the more people that show up and benefit from that, and really, they really enjoy it. And when you get people that come up to you and say, "Hey, I took half a day off from work today so I could drive from Worcester to come to your dinner because I haven't been able to take my son or my daughter or my family out for a meal in the last 4 years," it kind of gets you right there. It means a lot, and you're doing something good, and you're doing something good for the families and for the caregivers and the extended family, and let them all go out, because we get aunts and uncles and grandparents and teachers and everybody that's a part of that person with autism's life is encouraged to come and welcome to come and just join in and relax and have a night out and enjoy some good food.
Wow, thank you. So Galit, how did you get into this? What made you decide that there needed to be a Power Cafe?
Well, I guess it kind of started 4 years ago when I was volunteering with the learning program for children with Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. And that got me plugged into the disability community and understanding what it was like to have those issues, to have those things you're dealing with in your life, mm-hmm. which is not a disability, but society. And that's when I learned what I said before, that the children actually have amazing resources available mm-hmm. to them, but the parents are all worried what's going to happen when they grow up.
Right.
What's going to happen when the parents are no longer able to take care of them? What's going to happen when the kid would normally want to be an adult? And there is this huge gap of lack of resources, lack of training, lack of employment, lack of understanding in society of what people with disabilities are actually capable of contributing to society. At the same time, through social media, I learned that there actually are a lot of social enterprises, some of which are nonprofit, but some which are not, that try to fill in that gap. And I was so excited to read about those places, and I was thinking, shouldn't there be a place like that in Boston? And I didn't see any place like that in the Boston area. And I'm like, why not? And almost coincidentally, within 2 months of thinking that this would be really cool if somebody did that, I got a phone call from an organization that does all kinds of workshops. They're called Landmark Education, and I had done a workshop with them that works on projects in the community, and they wanted me to come back and do this program as a coach. And I'm like, oh my goodness, project in the community. I have an opportunity to utilize this workshop to create this project that I was just thinking somebody ought to do.
Wow.
It's like this opportunity just landed in my lap. And so I thought of the idea in April. In June, I was in the workshop, laying the groundwork, saying, okay, do I want this to be a nonprofit or for-profit organization? And it was very clear to me that it has to be a for-profit business, that the mission of it is to say that hiring people with disabilities is not charity work. Hiring people with disabilities is a viable business plan. They have stuff to contribute, and making those accommodations is just a good idea. So I laid all the groundwork. I found some partners. Really important partnership for Power Cafe was an organization called Triangle, which is based in Malden, and they do a lot of training and mentoring and matching of people with disabilities into the workforce. And again, total coincidence. I called them up in June of, I guess, 2014. That same summer, they were launching a culinary arts program at Bunker Hill Community College. And they were starting their very first class while I was asking them, hey, can you help me with staffing a coffee shop? It was just incredible synergy. Right
well, I
there.
have
So
to do this, apparently.
they were very excited to work with me. I actually contacted several other organizations in the Boston area, but Triangle was really proactive, kept the relationship with me, introduced me to their first class. They had their first class do mock interviews with me. So they had a chance to practice their interviewing skills as well. I wasn't quite ready to get started yet, but it was, it really laid the groundwork for what happened later. Finally found the location that we are in right now in the summer of 2015. And I called Triangle again, and they matched me up with 2 people from that year's class, one of whom actually knew me from my previous career because I used to be a math teacher at the Watertown Middle School, around the corner from where Power Cafe is. Wow. And she was one of my students in 6th grade. So she remembered her 6th grade math teacher, and she wanted to see me again. So, which is always,
which says a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
It's a testimony right there.
When I recognized her name, I wasn't sure if that was going to work for me or against me. But, but no, they're great, and it's been really awesome working with them and watching both of them really take off. I like to say the success or failure of this business is all on me. They know what they're doing just fine.
Wow.
It's up to me whether I can figure out what I'm supposed to do as the owner of the business. Now, I said that this is run entirely by people with disabilities, and I am not disabled, but one of my employees is right now working on his manager certification, and he's supposed to take the test in just a couple of weeks, at which point I will be able to, start saying that completely truthfully, that it will be run by people with disabilities. I'm also looking at, other people to bring in and grow the business, and it's very, very exciting.
It's really exciting. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Kathy, have you been involved with Autism Housing Pathways from the beginning?
Yes. It pretty much started, I asked people to get together for lunch after a presentation by the Department of Developmental Services on available day programs, and I invited a bunch of families, and we went from that initial lunch meeting from there. And when we incorporated, we decided to make it a membership-based organization because we had a distinct feeling, and we were right, that probably half a dozen people were going to do 90% of the work. Yep. And at least folks could, pay their $35 a year and cover some photocopying. Started out at 25, and now it's 35. But very
reasonable. Absolutely.
It's primarily we work people through a series of stages. So ideally we try to get people familiar with what we call the Turning 18 checklist, which is exactly what it says. This is everything you need to do when your child is about to turn 18. And here on the other side of this piece of paper are all the internet links for how to do it. Because when I was first getting started in this, I realized I have an Ivy League degree and I'm not working full-time right now, and it took me 3 days to figure out how to apply for Section 8 for my son. How is everyone else doing this? So we really needed to have it at people's fingertips to go through it. And so we try to start people with a Turning 18 checklist. On our website we have something called My Benefits Generator, which is an interactive tool you can use to figure out what mass health disability programs your family member is likely to be eligible for and how to apply for them. We do 2-hour introduction to housing workshops called Thinking About Housing. We have day-long housing workshops called Learning About Housing for when people are really ready to roll their sleeves up and get started. We have downloadable free housing workbooks for individuals with disabilities, and they are written at 3 different reading levels. There's an 8th grade reading level, there's a 1st grade reading level, and there are materials written for folks who are nonverbal that use activity books with stickers. And in addition to that, we've just put out a series of visual supports for folks who live in group homes. And so those are downloadable at a very discounted price thanks to the funding that we got from the Winchester Rotary Club that allowed us to develop them. And so those are visual supports for doing laundry, doing dishes, taking a shower, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, washing your hands, etc. Because there's really 3 pieces to housing. One is housing, not too surprisingly, and the supports that go with it. And the second piece is, do you have the skills you need to live as independently as possible with or without a caregiver? Because the more skills you have, even if you need a caregiver, the easier it is for everybody. And part of what goes with that is maintaining tenancy, because a lot of folks have difficulty maintaining tenancy. Either because they don't understand the hidden curriculum of being a tenant, or there's problems with property damage, or whatever else. And I think I already mentioned services, which is really the 3rd piece. It takes about 5 to 10 years to put together a housing plan and execute it.
Wow.
And that 5 to 10 years starts when you start. So if you start when your child is 18, they may have a place to live when they're 30. But if you don't start until they're 30, they may not have a place to live until they're 40.
Wow.
And so that's why people say, oh, my kid is just 16. So I said, come. You need to hear this now, because you don't know what you don't know. And so that's really the driving force. People don't realize that 85% of people with autism who turn 22 are not going to be receiving housing through the Department of Developmental Services, or conversely, they're not going to be able to afford housing on the open market because they are not employed full-time at a rate that will allow for that. So you've got 85% of that population that is going to need affordable, supported housing. And it's pretty much on the families to put it together.
That's incredible. And do you serve other populations, or specifically autism?
We serve other populations. It's all developmental disabilities. It started out as autism, frankly, because a lot of us, well, the group that founded it was all autism parents, with one exception. But we had all had the experience of going to organizations that were supposed to be for people with special needs more broadly, and it had not worked for us. And so we were trying to flag this, as it were, that yes, we do mean you. And so yes, but we work with people whose kids have a wide range of disabilities.
Wow. Fantastic.
It's interesting. I was at the CARE conference last spring, and one of the tracks that I attended was on the impact of autism or the disability on the sibling. And my daughter at the time was 11 or 12 years old, and just thinking very small in this way, I was thinking more on maybe some of the social impact of having a brother with autism. Am I going to be embarrassed, or how do I take him out, or my parents might ask me to drop him off somewhere or pick him up for something. But it really wasn't until sitting in that tract and understanding a lot of these things that, no, we're not just talking about two little kids here. We're talking about what happens when he gets older, and what is the impact on the sibling with helping to provide, maybe it's financial assistance or legal or housing or vocation, all of those things. And it completely was outside of my realm of what I was thinking.
Makes sense. Yeah, you don't think about it until you're in it. You're so busy with the day-to-day things. I'll put a plug in for the Massachusetts Sibling Support Network. So that's a great resource out there. Mary, you have so many things going on. I don't even know where to start.
Well, I was invited to write How Did I Get Here for Spiritual Directors International a year ago. And they invited me to write about, Mary, tell us why you're called to serve people with dementia and their caregivers. That would be great if you could write us an article about that. And I thought, okay, no problem. I write about this every month in my newsletter, and this won't be any problem. But when I sat down to write it, the Monday after Thanksgiving weekend, and I sat there at my computer saying, why am I called to serve people with dementia and their caregivers? I was surprised. I was absolutely surprised. I thought, okay, well, because I nearly got ran over by dementia. That's why I'm called, because I'm on a survivor's mission. And this was the language that I had been using, through all the grief work that I've done, of why I'm on this path. But then when I really, really looked at myself, saying, Mary, why are you doing this? And all my family saying, Mary, why are you doing this? It really came down to the fact that I was born a cradle Catholic to two loving parents, Scottish-Irish Joe and Margaret, Scottish-Irish, fighting Irish. This is in my genes to be a fighter. In upstate New York, where the gray days outnumber the sunny days, I've listened to Catholic social justice teaching my entire life. In my young life, I received positive mentorship, which was absolutely key because my young life was not easy. I had a bumpy road, and I was an eager seeker. And it led me to Boston College, where I got a master's in ministry in 1999. And I had some career discernment shortly after that, graduation, where I then figured out, well, I don't think I want to be a hospital chaplain at the age of 25 right now. Let me go get a 10-year career in user experience design in the corporate world. So I went into the corporate world, and big businesses paid me a sustainable living wage to make their websites easier for their constituents to use. Then dementia came calling to me in 2007, and I had to give it all up. I thought I had arrived. Oh, I've arrived as an adult. I can pay my rent and I've got some nice furniture. But a dementia came and I had to pack up my whole place and put it into storage. I had to move a state away. I had to leave my friends. I had to leave my fiance. I had to leave everything I knew in the Boston area and go to upstate New York and start managing the care of Margaret, who, and when I arrived in upstate New York, that started an 18-month decline of her. And I nearly died managing her care. Her type of dementia is called frontotemporal degenerative brain disease. McLean Hospital is just down the road. The doctors there told me, Mary, I'm so sorry your mom has this one. This is the toughest one. And it's the toughest because the symptoms are changing every 2 weeks. And the family never has a chance to arrive at a plateau of, okay, we're in phase 1 now. Or, okay, now we're in phase 2, or now we're in phase 3. The family is like, what behavior are we seeing now from our loved one? And, oh, now our loved one's fallen down and we need to go to the hospital. And, well, now who's going to take what assisted living is going to take our loved one, you know, because she has these behaviors, but these physical problems. Oh my God. She, you know, I nearly died because I was managing her care for 18 months across state lines, and there were 15 moves in less than 12 months between acute care, assisted living, and nursing care facilities. And Margaret died on Christmas Eve in 2008 at a nursing facility in Bedford, Mass. In 2009, I moved with my spouse, Carl, and I had PTSD into our home in Topsfield, Mass. In 2010, I rose from my couch. I founded Mary Mac Missions, and I became a certified yoga teacher so I could know how to take care of myself and teach others. And in 2011, I hit the road, you know, in church basements, in long-term care facilities, talking to any caregiver group I could get myself in front of on the take care of yourself topic. In 2012, I married the man who loves me and loves gardening. And really, my path is one of listening, and I'm a contemplative person. I basically listen morning, noon, and afternoon and nighttime. And I go out to the garden, I sit on the bench, I listen, and I really feel the Spirit is in charge. The Spirit, I'm taking orders from the Spirit. The Spirit is telling me, Mary, you need to do this. And I say, okay, I'm going to do this. And then blessings come. And people come, blessings come. People say this is the right thing to do. And I'm called a social entrepreneur. And people say it's one of the hardest jobs because people don't understand. You have to educate everybody about what you're trying to sell here.
The hardest thing is convincing them that they need what you're selling when they've never heard of it.
Yeah.
And then they go,
Yeah.
oh.
Right.
Yeah.
So my two goals are really to save these lives of dementia caregivers through speaking anywhere I possibly can, and to build these gardens, host the Memory Cafe, give people a sense of respite, give people a 2-hour guided respite retreat, be present. I'm in chaplaincy training right now to further and sharpen my skills on chaplaincy, because I feel I'm called to be a chaplain for the people who are dealing with one of the darkest, most uncertain, damaging illnesses of our time.
Thank you. Wow. Pat, you've been an incredible advocate for a very long time to many, many populations. Your Mental Health Matters show, is that?
Absolutely.
Yep. And serve different populations. And you've been called to do this work on your daughter's behalf.
I have been called to do this work not only on my daughter's behalf, but on the world's behalf. That's how far I would like to take it. After Laurie got sick, there were many years there that I knew my husband had borderline. I knew he was full of anger, but what was most important was I knew he knew nothing about schizophrenia. So if he, as a 30-year police officer, knew nothing about mental illness, then the rest of the people that were police officers knew nothing. And so I wrote a program called People with Special Needs, and I wrote another one called The Troubled Mind, and I went about teaching 8,500 police officers into mental illness. And what I would do would be I don't mind begging. You know, I would do anything to get rid of stigma of mental illness. And I would beg the police chiefs or whatever, you know, how about your 40 or 50 people on your police force? Do they know anything about it? No, they don't. Would they like to learn? Yes, they would. So between the police officers, the in-service training, the police recruits, the EMTs, the firefighters, the libraries, anybody who would listen to me, I would talk about the mentally ill, the innocent, vulnerable people with mental illness. And they are. People have no idea that perhaps their child is going to get sick at the age of 18 or 19, all the way up to 35. But it's between 18 and 24. So, and my daughter luckily got medication that brought her back to me. But I can't say that happens with everybody. And so I taught 8,500 police officers, and I kept on going. I got on every committee that I could get on that would lead me up the ladder for mental health education and to get rid of stigma. So I finally got up to the highest, the statewide advisory committee, and I actually became the president of the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. And what I ended up doing there was I put up 25 billboards. Mental illness is a physical illness. Medication works, treatment works. And I put those up all across Massachusetts. They cost $1,000 a piece. You can put up a sign, a billboard for nothing if you want it behind a bush. But if you want it on the expressway, if you want it at the bottom of the State House steps when your parity bill is being talked about for insurance equality, the first step towards ending discrimination, then you put it at the bottom of the State House street. And all these politicians, as they're walking up to work, can see it. And then I ended up, I wrote the mental health parity bill. I also, for the Department of Mental Health, I became the, on their committee for the sale of Danvers State Hospital. All the state hospitals were closing. And so my job for the Department of Mental Health was to get more funding for off-site housing for the mentally ill. So for a year and a half, when all of these buyers of Danvers would sit around and talk about how they were going to keep the front of Danvers intact, because it's a beautiful building. Oh, it's just gorgeous. And on the inside, it's all hand woodworking, etc. Well, as they're sitting around telling the committee, okay, we're going to pay this much, we're going to pay this much, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. I would be educating them on the people that were sitting on the steps of this condemned building, waiting to be let back into their home, because that's all they had ever known. And it was built for 500 people originally, and at the very end, there were 2,500 people in it.
Wow.
So I was educating all of these people about mental health. And they would, at the very end, when Avalon Bay bought it, and they came to me and they said, Pat, you're going to be very happy. And I said, why? And they said, because we're giving you $4.7 million for off-site housing to the Department of Mental Health, which is what they put in trust and used. And so my mental health show, which is on, it's on monthly now, but I'm gonna get more people on it. Would you guys like to be on it? Yeah, anyways, I am going to increase its production so that I can get rid of stigma, or help at least, you know? I need more movie stars up there asking for money, for more research. You know, mental health is right down the bottom of the barrel, and it can't be. It just can't be, because 1 in 4 families experience a mentally ill member, and it's worse than death. It's totally worse than death, because in death you have an ending, a finality. With mental illness, you have the child that's grown up maybe in your house, and you're living with schizophrenia and hallucinations and delusions every day. And it's so hard for the families. So I wish people would realize that, and we need grief counseling. We really do, because it's really grievous. Yeah. So that's what I do.
Thank you so much. I wish we had another hour. You're all so amazing. You all really need your own show just to talk about the incredible work you're doing. Squeeze in one last question before we hear the music. What advice do you have for people? I know this is a loaded question and we're going to run out of time, but you guys did it. You saw this need and you made it happen. Like, what's your advice if somebody's got an idea or they see something that's missing? Where do you start?
Well, for me, the gotcha moment was we were out to dinner one night and having one of these stressful nights out at a pizza restaurant. And the food was taking longer than Aiden wanted it to. And as I turned to talk to my wife, I saw that the color drained from her face, and I turned back around, and Aiden was on his way to the third table, grabbing slices of pizza off of every table he could get his hand on while he ran around the restaurant. And I'm chasing him, and he was laughing and having fun. And looking back, it was pretty funny at the time. But it illustrated the point that we're going to do something, and I know exactly what doesn't work. So maybe if I can do the opposite, we'll have a program that does work. And once we started writing it out, the next step was just talking to people about it, letting people know what we're trying to do, and asking if they want to be involved with it somehow. And I think that, similar to what Galit was saying, is once you have the idea and once you start going out there with it, you'll find a lot of people want to be involved. A lot of people want to help you out and introduce you to other people that want to help you out.
Wonderful.
And it just snowballs from there, and you learn as you go. But the first step is just saying, I'm going to do something, and going out there and going public and making it happen.
Fantastic. And so can I put it out there to all of you that if anybody watching this show has any questions or ideas, that they're free to contact you?
Absolutely.
And also if you want to contact the Massachusetts Lifespan Respite Coalition at massrespite.org. We can help you get in contact with other people who have similar thoughts and ideas, because there's amazing stuff happening, and you guys are a wonderful, powerful sampling of a lot of other people out there doing amazing things. So don't give up hope, right?
Never
There's always
give up hope.
Never give up hope.
My kid is wonderful.
Yeah. Oh. And I want to thank you all so much for being guests. I really appreciate it. And your stories and your organizations are so empowering and amazing, and you're all making incredible differences in the lives of people, as you know. caregivers and families and children and the larger community, like you said, that everybody here is just part of the community, and all these things need to be recognized as normal families and normal, no more stigma. I love that.
And volunteers lead with their hearts.
Volunteers lead with their hearts.
Absolutely.
So thank you all so much, and I hope to have you all back, and Pat's going to have you all back on her show.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.